Good morning, dear colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to share with you some issues unlocking the secrecy of PPM, personalized precision medicine, guided services in the area of clinical neurology. Just mentioned, unfortunately, neurology is #1 in the world in the area of autoimmunity, but it's a director of the Center of Autoimmunity at Johns Hopkins and the director of the Center of Human Photosynthesis at R&D Director. But what we are telling R&D Hopkins is the vice director of NIH. You mean microphone? Yes. This one.
No, this one.
Okay, yeah, I will just use it.
Okay.
Okay. Abner Notkins was for 11 years vice director of NIH, but unfortunately COVID too. And just only Sean Murphy is the head of bioinformatics of Harvard Medical School. We are still on collaborating. All of them many times visited Moscow, but before Ukraine. Over the course of its history, medicine and healthcare philosophy has just given very special attention to the already diseased individual. Clinically manifested, thank you, disease nosology rather than on one's health or so-called pre-illness conditions, while the latter being left in the shade. Whilst analyzing and pre-selecting determinants, major determinants of health, just looking around, a group of the well-known and recognized experts in the area from NIH, from Stanford, from Munich, from Heidelberg, from Cambridge, and from Osaka, has presented an evidence-based and well-documented assessment of global trends in medicine and healthcare development, and stressed the extensive value of the next step model of healthcare services being entitled as personalized precision medicine. The strategy, which is the core of the frame of PPM, would give a genuine opportunity to secure preventive, prophylactic, therapeutic, and rehabilitative measures whose individualization or personalization, doesn't matter, could have a significantly positive influence on demographics globally. PPM as being the grand challenge to forecast, to predict, and to prevent is rooted in a grand and a new science generated by the achievements of systems biology and translational medicine. Just for instance, systems biology course of lectures in Stanford, 178 lectures. Translational medicine, 122 lectures, hugest. Translational medicine, very brief. To connect basic research and daily clinical practice via translational bridges being based on design-driven biotech bioengineering, biointerfaces, and bioinformatics. Whilst integrating platforms of omics technologies, just look, very brief. It's the inner infrastructure of omics technology portfolio, whose data is analyzed, integrated, mined, and clinical interpreted by a set of algorithms and software of bioinformatics, artificial intelligence, machine learning, natural language, and the last year's blockchain, and are implemented into the daily practice to secure clinical, subclinical, prognostic, and predictive maneuvers manipulation being personalized. In this context, PPM is a goal of healthcare in which both diagnostic and treatment decisions are informed by each person's unique clinical basics, predominantly omics, and new one, environmental, or in more precise term today, exposomics related information. For instance, University of Houston, exposomics, 76 lectures. To implement PPM resources into practice, there is a strong need to develop a principally new strategy based on biomarkers. To really understand PPM, we would have to exploit and practice PPM and genomics tools in particular. Genomics is considered to be a set of the unique genomics, biomarkers, and thus the molecular tools to probe human genome, for its quality, and now even be tested for predictive and prognostic biomarkers. Diagnostic is just regular canonical. Ideally, the identification of a new specific biomarker of disease vulnerability, such as genomic biomarker, would be matched with a specific predictive diagnostic program or clinical protocol and therapeutic intervention that target the vulnerability mentioned. Improved patient outcomes with the use of the biomarker tests must consider not only increased survival or quality of life, I mean, due to Aristotle and Hippocrates, but also improved clinical decision support and making, leading to the avoidance of unnecessary therapy or toxicity captured with the rapid learning system. It's just the illustration of clinical decision support and making. As you might see, having access to the deepest genomic information will become increasingly important as physicians, I mean practitioners, are progressively receptive to incorporating genomics and genomics armamentarium in clinical practice. Meanwhile, a combination of genomic and phenomic phenotyping biomarkers are becoming of greatest significance to be translated into the daily clinical practice to predict risks of the chronification and thus of disabling. Genetic risk very briefly, what's that? Genetic risk is the contribution of our gene, I mean human genomic landscape, to play in the chance we have of developing certain illnesses or diseases. As a tool, we can identify genes that increase disease risk. For example, every person is at risk for cancer, but each person's risk is genetically individualized. Same for type 1B. Phenome, in this context, is a bridge from genome, proteome, and metabolome and related subareas, which are two important elements of phenome. It really is a part of phenome. Proteomics, metabolomics per se is the continuation of functional genome. More simple products of transcription and translation. So a combination of genomic proteomic biomarkers are becoming of great significance to be used and applied in PPM guided healthcare service. It's becoming clear that further development of molecular technologies, risk prediction algorithms, and clinical decision support protocols is needed. As you might see from the above mentioned, PPM is an emerging approach to healthcare that aims to optimize medical treatment by tailoring it to the specific characteristic of each, either patient or pre-illness person at risk, in particular in cancer risk families. Just an example. PPM is based on the idea that individuals differ in many aspects, including their genotype, phenotype, lifestyle, and environment, and that those differences can have a significant impact on disease development and response to treatment. Therefore, by taking into account those individual differences, PPM can help to identify the most effective treatment strategies for each client. Canonic for patients, preventive for pre-illness persons at risk. In this sense, neurodegenerative disorders is the major target for PPM to be used today in clinical neurology. Neurodegenerative disorders are promisingly suited models for PPM because of the rapidly expanding genetic knowledge base, phenotypic classification, the development of biomarkers, and the potential modifying treatment. And the consideration make it clear that PPM could transform clinical care among NDDs, just remind here, neurodegenerative disorders, and could lead to a new treatment framework for them. The NDD-related field has enjoyed extremely limited success in the development of highly effective therapies, including targeted and the latest achievement, MARC. Standard clinical trials have predetermined a single treatment modality, which may be unrelated to the primary drivers of neurodegeneration. The potential benefits of PPM in the area of NDD are significant. By identifying biomarkers, targets, and thus disease subtypes, PPM can help to diagnose the type or subtype of the illness early and more accurately, as well as predict disease course and response to the treatment pre-select. Furthermore, by developing targeted therapies, PPM can improve treatment efficacy and reduce the risk of adverse effects. So, precise diagnostic and affiliated monitoring is a critical component of PPM and NDDS and is essential for the successful implementation in the field of NDDS-related practice. The identification of accurate and reliable biomarkers and latest innovation, molecular imaging techniques can help to diagnose the disease early and much accurately, predict disease course and response to treatment, and monitor disease progression in a stepwise manner. However, the implementation of precision diagnostics in the field of NDDS also requires addressing several challenges, including the development of affordable and accessible technologies and the standardization by the regular bodies of diagnostic criteria. In recent years, significant progress has been made in the development of biomarkers. And as I have already mentioned, molecular imaging techniques for monitoring NDDS and multiple sclerosis, MS in particular. Look, it's just, it's just the illustration very briefly of the application of the above mentioned in neurodegenerative diseases. And in particular, please focus your attention on neurogenomics. Meanwhile, precision in therapeutic focus aims to determine the best approach to prevent, to diagnose, and to treat NDDS, in which what's measured is linked to outcomes and relevant clinical unmet needs. By delivering differentiated therapies in area of critical unmet need, and by creating and leveraging advances in PPM-driven neurology across several key areas, we aim to lead the precision revolution in neuroscience to reduce the burden and disability caused by serious problems. Briefly, very briefly, look around modern therapeutic modes and approaches as applicable to PPM guided clinical cases of NDDS. Cellular therapies, one of the topical. For instance, only supportive care is provided for ALS patients and no effective treatment or cure has been discovered. To date, the therapeutic potential of cell-based therapies for ALS patients and pre-illness persons at risk has not been fully evaluated given the paucity of high-quality clinical trials. Based on data from preclinical studies, cell-based therapy is anyway a promising treatment for the above-mentioned group of disorders. Just look, in terms of cell-based therapy, special attention, please, on stem cell therapy in LALS. Just very briefly for you, just to look around, no more, no time. Meanwhile, the quest for disease-modifying therapies in ALS has several obstacles. The most important being the suboptimal quality of the design of clinical trials. And now FDA has requested changing from the regular design of clinical trials for adaptive design, which now has just an experience only in two hospital-affiliated clinics in Stanford and at UCSF and San Francisco. As there is no cure for ALS right now, the field of design-inspired and biotech-driven translational research and application in the field is very important for us, I mean for human beings. In the last years, the use and integration of high throughput omics approaches have dramatically changed our thinking about ALS, improving our understanding of the complex molecular architecture of the disease. I mean, precision, including digital pathology. Distinguishing distinct patient subtypes and providing a rational foundation for the discovery of biomarkers and new individualized treatments. Anyway, modern PPM-guided neurology urgently needs panel of productive and informative biomarkers, biomarker-driven targets. I would stress, biomarker-driven targets. Target or a family of targets. And targeted drugs of the next step generation with newer indications in the treatment of ALS. Next, genome therapy being based on genome editing. Please, it's just since there is very few innovations, it's just pioneering time. Just please look, gene therapy for NDDS, very brief. Targeted therapy, one of the latest topical trends, is a way to recommend a therapeutic protocol being tailored individually. I would stress specially, individually. I have seen myself at Johns Hopkins and at UCSF. They would get the targeted base drug from the company and getting it individualized within 1 week at the university-affiliated laboratories to specific patient or person at risk within their family. Alzheimer. The underlying heterogeneous etiology and diverse symptoms of AD suggest that the PPM-driven and guided strategy is required, which would take into account the complex genetic, epigenetic, and environmental landscape of each AD patient and pre-illness person at risk. Their specific patterns could represent the basis for novel, individually tailored approaches aimed to optimize PPM-guided strategy for not only for AD canonic patients, for targeted or multi-targeted prevention. Currently, diagnosis and management of pre-early subclinic symptoms-free. ADA are largely guided by clinical symptoms. The efficacy of a treatment could be better evaluated if efficient biomarkers are available. FDA-approved biomarkers can aid detection and diagnosis, but the clinical implementation of those testing modalities is highly limited at this point because of availability, cost, and perceived invasion. Meanwhile, blood-based biomarkers may enable early and faster diagnosis as well as aid in genetically guided risk assessment pre-early at subclinical stage, detection, prognosis, and management. As a result of translational research and application, just for example, aducanumab being the phase 4 trial, first FDA-approved moiety that surpasses the blood-brain barrier, BBB, and reduces amyloid plaques in the brain, thereby reducing associated, stress, associated cognitive decline. It's just an illustration of what I have just mentioned. Other drugs are also under clinical trials and have recently been approved by FDA, but still discussing. Some other design-driven therapeutic modes, including active and passive, I would stress, not immunotherapy, targeted immunotherapy for AD, as well as several vaccines, not vaccines, personalized vaccines, such as amyloid beta epitope-based vaccines, amyloid beta DNA vaccines, and targeted stem cell therapy for AD, which are in clinical trials as well. Not pre-approved by FDA, not yet. Just the illustration of what I have just mentioned about. MS, multiple sclerosis. The improved understanding of MS neurobiology alongside the development of novel biomarkers for disease will allow PPM to be applied to MS patients, bringing the promise of improved care. Combinations of clinical and paraclinical data are currently used for diagnosis and prognosis. The addition of advanced MSI, and biofluid markers has been strongly encouraged since classified MS patients and pre-MS persons at risk moved from the family compromise. According to the underlying biology, will improve monitoring and treatment strategy. MS, Tipanimab, and acrelizumab. Sorry, may I ask you to read yourself? Yeah. So I'm going to just relate. Is it visible? No, I mean, right. Really visible. Just 20 seconds. It's okay. Again, the latest therapeutic modes for MS are broadly used given their proven efficacy in the relapsing form of the disease, while biomarker-driven medicine and drugs as applicable to the therapeutic advances global, therapeutic advances in MS. Just the illustration, brief but globally on the level. of special significance for MS. It would be my second step after the line of presentation. Enzymes, sequence-specific antibody protein. It's a new generation of immunoglobulins and new generation of enzymes, which have proved to be greatly informative and thus valuable biomarkers to monitor MS at both subclinical and clinical stages, in contrast to usual regular antibodies, where efficacy 45–75%, enzyme 100% precision, and no error. The illustration of the functionality, which is specific for antibody protein. Oh, sorry. Personalized aims and objectives exist at every stage of disease initiation and progress to develop a personalized health plan, addressing lifestyle risk modification and disease management, and later, more personalized health management and wellness programs from a stage of being pregnant. The implementation of PPM in the field of NDDS also requires addressing several challenges, including the standardization of diagnostic criteria and treatment guidelines, the development of affordable and accessible technologies and therapies, but the ethical and legal consideration of personalized treatment. As you might see from the above match, PPM globally and PPM as applicable to NDDS in clinical neurology has drastically changed and is keeping on changing the landscape of healthcare. As you might see, PPM and PPM-guided clinical neurology call for a transdisciplinary, biodesign-inspired approach to support safe and effective deployment of the new enabling diagnostic and therapeutic technologies, not to treat, but to get absolutely huge. This approach mentioned should be based on postulates which will change the incarnate culture and social mentality. Since the ground-changing challenge to secure health and wellness are rooted not in medicine and not even in science, it's just my personal viewpoint in the upgraded high-tech culture. And upon construction of the new educational, training platforms in the rational proportions, there would be not a primitive physician, not a primitive neurology in the near future to come, created, but a medical artist to secure for a patient and genuine hope to survive, for a personal risk, a trust, for being no disease. Thank you so much for your patience.